And during those proceedings, you participated and you had counsel with you during those proceedings?
Correct.
And you understood that your son was being taken away from you?
Correct.
You understand that at that period of time is that the state actually stepped in and started providing stability for your son?
Correct.
And the state actually, through their resources, which they had investigators and other individuals, and that proceeding with the state went on for quite some period of time.
Yes.
And through those proceedings, several individuals made reports and investigations of yourself, and during those investigations, they put together some perimeters or guidelines, recommendations that you would follow. Do you recall reviewing those?
Yes, Councilman.
And when these recommendations were put together for you to follow, you didn't follow those recommendations, did you?
Not from the beginning, Council.
Is there any period of time in which you followed those recommendations?
Yes, Council.
And when did you do that?
Well, I started my classes late 2014, and then all through 2015, I attended drug and alcohol classes, anger management classes, parenting classes, impulse control classes, evaluations. I didn't have much guidance from my caseworker. Hello?
You keep on freezing on my end. I don't know if it's you're receiving the same thing.
The last thing I heard was I didn't have much guidance from my caseworker. Do you have anything else you were saying after that,
Correct.
ma'am? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Pofflin.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And so the reason for you didn't completing anything as required, all the recommendations and the goals which are set for you in the case plan is because you didn't have much guidance from your caseworker?
What area of time are you talking about? Like from the beginning at the end, the entire time?
Well, it's my understanding there was a case plan put together after the case
Okay.
was initiated for the abuse and neglect by you. And that case plan wasn't completed, and I was just trying to find out the reasons why it wasn't completed.
Honestly, to my recollection, during the case closure, I thought the case plan was completed. I was unaware of the fact that it was to be continued when the case was closed and that it was not completed.
And so you're not aware of what's in the case plan when the case closed, and do you know when the case closed?
I believe March 2017.
Have you read the case plan that was in there, and there are concerns about you not completing several of the elements of the case plan?
I just received the case plan in January, so I've just reviewed it recently.
So that's the first time that you received the case plan, which was attached to the report, the final report by the in the CPS case?
That's the first time I've seen the case plan since 2017 when the case closed. And prior to that, my caseworker had given it to me in 2015. But she never explained that that is the most vital thing that I would need it to have completed. She only said, you need to go here, get an evaluation. You need to go here, do counseling. She didn't say, hey, go reference this case plan that I gave you in the beginning and make sure you get all that completed.
During this period of time while you were doing the case plan in 2015, were you ever arrested?
No.
You weren't arrested for domestic violence in August of 2015?
No, that was a 12-hour hold on a domestic against my ex-boyfriend.
So in your exhibit...
More of a he said, she said thing.
Okay, so you weren't arrested. That your Exhibit E, base stamp KH007. Let's take a look at that.
Mr. Hoffman, did you say our Exhibit E like elephant? KH which one? Because E I have a certificate.
That's what I've got. I've got...
What, give me a Bates number and I'll find that. Did you say Bates number 77?
Hold on a second. I'm going to grab it. Give me one moment.
Okay.
It looks like it is.
I'm sorry. It's our Exhibit 8. Looks like 8's the lucky number today.
It's probably an arrest report.
Mr. Hoffman, are we talking, it starts with base number 314?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, we have it in front of us.
Thank you. And Kaylee, it has two dates in there. Down at the bottom of two different cases. Starting with PC15 M038X.
Okay.
There was a misdemeanor that you were arrested for. Do you recall being arrested on that date? This is in February 8th of 2015.
Talk to me.
I wouldn't, so I was taken in on a hold. Like, they didn't put me in handcuffs. They didn't read me my rights. They just said you're being held on a 12-hour hold. So I'm not sure if I would say I was arrested.
Okay.
Maybe?
Well, can you tell us the circumstances
Hold.
that occurred?
Where did they just hold you at your house, or did you go to jail?
Yeah, I went to jail. So I guess I would say I was arrested.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman, continue.
Thank you. What were the circumstances why you were
Sorry.
taken to jail?
Well, he said I scratched his neck. The other party.
Okay. Was he taken to jail along with you?
Yes.
And where were you at when this occurred?
At his condo.
Were you under the influence of drugs?
No counsel.
Had you been drinking?
No counsel.
So you were again arrested after that in 2017, is that true?
Yes, counsel.
And can you tell us the circumstances when you were arrested in August 2nd of 2017?
Again, a 12-hour hold, same situation. I eventually left this boyfriend alone.
And so what were the circumstances again? When the police came out to this house where you were at?
Yes.
And were you under the influence of drugs?
No counsel.
So what is it? Your testimony today is that. Well, actually, I want to ask you this: when was the last time that you were under the influence of drugs?
I don't recall.
Last month?
No. Years and years ago. Over 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago.
So it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was after your son was taken from you.
Yes, counsel. I had a bit of a problem when my case first started. I was depressed. I was drinking. I was using. Eventually, AA and NA helped me a lot, and I got clean.
And so you said that you were using. What were the drugs that you were using?
Cocaine, marijuana, and alcohol.
Xanax?
No, No, counsel.
So when you were arrested going back in September of 2014, September 25th, for having Xanax on you, whose Xanax was that?
A friend gave it to me and said that if I was really stressed out, I should just take it or take half of it. And I never took it because she did tell me it was going to make me sleepy, so I didn't want to be sleepy in public with my child.
And you're outside at night. Do you think it's appropriate to be in a park late at night, at 10 o'clock at night?
We were leaving the park around 8 o'clock, so the sun was just going down.
So it took you 2 hours to get from leaving the park to the bus stop?
I'm not sure the timing on that is correct because I was dealing with harassment for at least an hour until I got to a different bus stop. So, like 45 minutes, and I was waiting for a bus for a fairly long time. So, I do know that when I checked my phone last before the police took it from me, it was about 9:45. So, we're looking at about an hour and a half here. It was a really long time ago, so that's just to my best of my recollection.
You would agree with me that was a bad place for Jaden to be in.
No, it was a park.
Okay, so you don't agree with me that it was bad for him to be in the park late at night or after 7 o'clock in the park?
The sun was going down, and I was trying to have a walk with him to get him tired. So typically moms, no matter what time of day or night it is, if it's a decent neighborhood and their child can't sleep, they're going to bring it for a walk, right? Or bring it for a drive, maybe, or, just, he was very active at 2. So it's not like I could just sit at the house and tire him out. Going for walks was his thing. It was how he fell asleep. So there was numerous times I would take walks around my complex or at the park, but no, never before or after 10 o'clock at night.
Well, but the allegations that you weren't just walking in the park is that you're aggressively shaking your son.
I do not agree.
You're hitting him and bouncing him around, correct?
I do not agree.
Okay, so let's go
with
back.
the allegations.
All right, so what you did in the park that night was not correct? Was it or was not?
The allegations are not correct.
Okay, and so do you believe what you did on that night in the park was wrong?
Counsel, I believe I shouldn't have had drugs on me or been had any involvement with drugs.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what your testimony is. You're saying that you shouldn't have had drugs on you on that date in the park, correct?
I shouldn't have had drugs on me ever.
All right, so you never, all right, what about taking drugs? Having them on you and taking drugs, is there two different things?
The same.
Okay, so when you're answering the question, is taking drugs the same as having drugs on you?
No, they're two different actions, but I mean, like, if you have it, you're going to do it, right?
Okay, so having and doing it, when you're saying having it means that you're doing it as well.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Judge, I've noticed that the mic's going off a couple different times when I'm asking her questions, and she's talking to her counsel. If she could just instruct her not to do that.
Ma'am, let's leave the microphone open for the witness for the entire time. So I don't want you to mute.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, it's not okay, but this is the instruction moving forward. You're not to mute it.
Judge, she did that. I just want you. She did that on her own, and I immediately said, look, and I pointed to the picture. I said, "You're talking to Brad now, not me." She didn't realize, but we'll follow the instruction. Thank you.
No, and I understand, counsel understands, but let me make it clear for everybody who's joining us. The witness who is testifying is the microphone's going to be live and continuous. It's not going to be muted. You are not allowed to speak with your counsel between the question and the answer, right? This is supposed to be live testimony. I want the information from
Okay.
you. It's important that I get information from the witnesses, not from your lawyers. If I just wanted to talk to your lawyers, we would already be done, okay? We would have already had a conversation. The lawyers and I could have dealt with this, probably at 7:45. But we want to hear it from you. I need to hear it from you. You're my source, so please just answer the question. It'll also move us quicker. All right, go ahead.
Forgive me, Your Honor. Sorry, I've
Go ahead, Mr.
never
Humphrey.
been in a trial before.
Kaylee, so I have an understanding. So on that date, you're saying that it was wrong for you to have drugs in your system, to having drugs, and if you had drugs, you're using drugs. So just having drugs means you're using drugs, correct?
Yes.
And that was wrong. Or was there anything else wrong on that date?
I would believe that would be it.
Kaylee, I didn't get your answer.
Oh, sorry, counsel. I believe that's all.
Okay, so the only problem on that date was that you were using, having, and drugs, correct?
Yes, counsel.
Okay. So at any time, at any place, whatever's occurred and was being investigated by CPS, your response is that the only thing that you've done wrong was that you had drugs or you're using drugs.
Yes, counsel.
So there was nothing regarding your care for Jaden?
No, counsel.
And so you didn't appropriately touch, hit, harm, provide a bad environment for your son?
No, counsel.
And let me ask this. Is that since this period of time, and you told me before you testified is that you provided a stable environment for your son?
Yes.
On that date, did you provide a stable environment for your son? I think you already answered this, and forgive me. Was it stable on that date?
When you say stable environment, I think of a home, food, bed, a stable environment outside of the home. At that time, no. On that day, outside of the home, no. It wasn't a stable situation. That would be more of a situation to me than the way I'm looking at environment. Does that make sense?
Well, yes and no, because actually my questions are, I want to understand from you what it is that providing a stable environment for Jaden means, if you understand what that, but what it means. But if you don't understand what I'm asking the question, please ask me or tell me you don't understand.
Okay.
But do you understand the question?
Not really.
All right. Would you agree or disagree with me that it's very important that Jaden lives in a stable environment?
I agree.
And would you agree with me is providing a stable environment is an environment where his needs are met, that Jaden's needs are met?
Yes, counsel.
And so meeting the needs of Jaden is that Jaden's a young boy, he's a living thing, a living person, and he has needs, correct?
Yes.
He needs to be in a home where it's safe, he feels safe, correct?
Yes.
He's able to grow. He's able to rely on
Yes.
who's caring for him.
Of course.
He's able to experience life. He's able to be trained or learn about what things are good and what things are bad.
Yes.
He needs to be protected from harm.
Yes.
These need to be given adequate supervision so he's not harmed when he's doing things and experimenting.
Of course, definitely.
Now, you told me before that the only thing that would occur on that park is that that's a different incident as to stability. That's not really, and you made a distinction regarding stability. Can you tell me what you meant by that?
Give me a moment, please.
Sure.
Okay, so the way I want to answer that question, because it sounds just like the same one you just asked me a few minutes ago, I would say his living environment was stable, but the environment that I was currently in during the situation was not. I admit to that. And I definitely regret it.
Okay, but you would say to me that the only thing you did wrong on that date is that you were using drugs.
Correct, counsel.
And would you agree or disagree with me? The fact that you're using drugs adversely affected your son's growth, his environment, his self-worth, and his basic needs.
Yes?
Yes, what? You agree with me that you didn't meet those needs?
Yes.
And so it was at that one moment what occurred in the park, or was it at that period of time when you were caring for your son?
That moment at the park.
Okay, so this was the only instance which occurred because you got caught in the park on that date.
Yes, counsel.
And so you did nothing in the park wrong other than you had drugs on your system.
Yes, counsel.
And that was the first time that you did drugs, or how long were you doing drugs before that?
Only a week or two.
So it was just amazing that it occurred. It said September 25th of 2014. There happened to be 3 off-duty police officers in the park. At this one moment, the light came on you. And if they had not been there, this would not have been brought to light.
Counsel, can you please repeat? You kind of blanked out a little bit towards the end of the question.
No, I saw when we went out, so I paused, and so it's your testimony today is that the only time that you did drugs was this for 1 week prior to this date, in September of 2014.
No, counsel.
Okay, so how long had you been
Is
doing
it prior? I'm sorry, did you say prior to being arrested?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then yes, that is true.
Just for 1 week.
I said, to my best recollection, a week or two, and it was only a little bit while at work to stay up through the night. I was often tired from taking care of my baby all day. The girls that I worked with convinced me that it would help, and it did not.
How many times were CPS involved in investigations of you after you moved to Nevada?
There was only one incident when they had came to my house on an allegation that I had left him alone, which was not true because I had a babysitter come to my weekly and babysit for me. So they may have seen me leave, but that didn't mean my son was not alone or was alone. So those allegations were quickly shot down. They issued me a drug test, and I had, at the time, 2013, I was not using any drugs. So I had provided a clean drug test for them at their request immediately, and the case was closed.
And that was in September of 2013?
Yeah, I think it was then. That's
So
to my best recollection.
So somebody made a report and allegations that you lock your son unsupervised at home inside your weekly. You sleep all day and all night. and you take the child to drug dealers in the complex. Possible use of meth, child is dirty, skinny, no shoes, went outside. So that was...
Counsel, my son has never been skinny. I'm sorry.
Well, what about the other allegations which were made against you?
No, I don't agree. I don't agree at all.
Okay. So you didn't leave your son with drug dealers?
No, counsel, never.
And at that period of time, you did not know my client.
He was...
sorry. At that period of time, you didn't know who
I know who Ting Ho is. I've known who she was since my son was 6 months old, and I met her at the hospital in Kerrville, Texas.
And so there was another referral to CPS in April of 2014. And the allegation was that you're working at Olympic Gardens and you're leaving your son with somebody that you don't even know.
I don't even recall that allegation. Was never contacted by CPS about it. And my son had a babysitter who was 16 years old at the time, 17 years old, and her mother would be with her as well.
Okay.
So I had two babysitters, really.
So can you explain to me in the CPS, in the petition, and then in the final report which is issued when the case closed, why your supervision with your son should be supervised?
I believe CPS made allegations that they thought I needed more anger management before unsupervised visitation. And so at that point, I attended impulse control. But to her, it was not enough.
Who?
The caseworker, I mean.
Oh,
To the caseworker?
Okay. And are you aware that in the abuse and neglect petition as well is that they wanted to, there are notes in here that they were going to terminate your parental rights?
Yeah, but there's no basis for that because during all my visitations, Satan's never felt harmed. He's never been smacked, poked, pinched, pushed, shoved, pulled, none of that. I've always loved him and shown care for him. I would never want to hurt his feelings because there's like a direct string between me and my son that, like, when you play a guitar, if I hit the string, I feel what he feels. So I've never wanted to make him feel any kind of hurt or pain. I've never wanted to do that to him. So I'm not sure.
Do you understand that if you take drugs and you're not attentive to him, is that it creates to him harm or pain to your son?
Oh, totally agree, counsel.
And do you agree with me is that during the period of time is that the state made a finding in which you're only to have supervised visitation with your son?
Correct. At the time, they had an issue with my medical marijuana usage, and I did obtain a medical marijuana card and a doctor's prescription, but it was not acceptable to CPS in any way. So they did not agree with moving forward on my case plan completely.
The case
Meaning my house smelled like marijuana, so that's why they're like, you have to have supervised visits. I think that was the reason.
Did you do anything in which to convince CPS after they made the recommendation that your visitation with your son was only to be supervised? Did you take any efforts to have that changed?
I'll be honest with you, counsel. My caseworker stopped answering my phone calls. At one point, she wouldn't even communicate with me.
Okay, but to answer my question is, so did you do anything in which to change around the recommendation that your visitation is only to be supervised?
I tried to.
And what did you do?
I tried to have CPS come look at my new place. I tried to have them inspect the home. He never answered my phone call, and when I called her supervisor said, well, I'll transfer over the message. And then at that point, time just rolls on, and we go to court, case closed.
Okay, so maybe, I'm sorry, here's the question I asked you, is that after the case closed, what, if anything, have you done in which to change the recommendations that your visitation not be supervised or it's modified in any stance? What have you done?
Well, I can't do anything with an order that's on a closed case. Can't change that anyway.
So is your answer you've done nothing?
I've done a lot.
And
I've gotten sober. I've always provided a place for myself to live. Food. I haven't been arrested in 3 years. I don't involve myself with drugs, drug dealers, ghetto people of that sort, or anything like that. Changed my whole life.
And we're talking about your son, so if I can go back to your son a little bit. And so...
Yes, so to answer your counsel is yes, I have attempted to make changes to the supervised visitation, but I have no communication with Rex, so with it being at his discretion, I cannot force a change.
And let me go back to my other question, which I asked you before. You're aware that through the cases there was talk about termination of your parental rights, correct?
There was talk, yes.
And is it your understanding that if Rex had not stepped forward, that your rights would have been terminated?
No, counsel. My stepmother and father were in the process of adoption.
And your mother, your father and stepmother were in the process of adoption, and they made a request in which to relocate to California with your son. Is that true?
Yes, but I think by all means it was just hypothetical. It wasn't ideal.
And they made a request, and they said that their request was denied. Do you recall that?
Yes. They originally couldn't find an RV park that fit their standards. They thought they found one, but then they didn't agree with it.
Well, the court said that living in an RV park in California is not appropriate. It's not considered to be an abode, which is suitable for your son in California, correct?
Correct.
And so at that period of time, part of this period of time, this is when the court was considering, or there was talk about termination of your parental rights, and that your father and his stepwife would adopt Jaden. And then they made this request in which to relocate to California, and that was denied. And that's when Rex came to light, correct?
Well, I mean, Rex has always been in the light, but legally, yes.
Well, his legal rights were, he was given notice of the proceeding, and which Rex was, after he was given notice, he came in and made an appearance in the proceeding, correct?
He was given notice prior to that situation for his paternity, getting involved, so yeah.
Well, Rex's name wasn't on Jaden's birth certificate, correct?
Yeah, because he was born in New York.
Rex's name was on it or was not?
It is not. He was born in New York, and Rex was on travel at the time.
All right, and so subsequently, in the abuse and neglect case, is that a paternity test was administered, and Rex is confirmed to be the father of Jaden, correct?
Correct.
And so, after he was confirmed to be the father, he was given the ability to have some visitation with Jaden, correct?
Correct.
And this was the same period of time in which your parents' petition, which to relocate to California, was denied, correct?
Correct.
And it was about 6 months later, after Rex was vetted. Rex was vetted through the court, the family court, correct? To have Jaden take care of Jaden, correct?
Can you repeat that question for me, please?
Sure. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping through this a little.
I'm sorry.
not.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking me. That's all.
Okay, not a problem. So, you testified that your parents, your father and his wife, filed a petition, which to relocate with Jaden to California, and that was denied.
Okay, yeah.
And then after that period of time, this is when Rex came into the picture, correct?
Rex was always in the picture, but this is when he came in the legal picture, correct?
Thank you. And he came in the legal picture. Because and a paternity test was done, he was confirmed to be the biological father of Jaden. Mm-hmm. And
correct.
At the same period of time, when the petition was denied for Jaden to leave to go to California with your father and his wife, is when Rex started to have visitation with Jaden. Is that correct?
Yes. It was, they had to make sure, because he had some sex offender charge from Texas, they had to make sure that it wasn't a big problem. So it took a while for the transition from my father to Rex. And they wanted to have like sporadic visits to so they could build a bond.
Okay. And so that bond was established over a period of time?
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, he knew who he was. They already had a somewhat of a bond, but they just got a better bond at that.
And I guess I'm using the term vetted. You would agree with me is that there was a pure process that they went through, and that Rex was given visitation with Jaden over a period of time.
Yeah, it took roughly like a month.
Okay. And so then after that period of time, and during that process, Ting was part of that process as well.
I have no idea.
And subsequent, after that, Jaden went to go live with Rex.
Yes.
And so Jaden continued to live with Rex until the case was ultimately closed.
Yes.
So my question to you is, knowing that that they were going to terminate your parental rights and give your son, terminate your parental rights, and your parents were going to adopt your son. And now Rex is now in the picture, so that termination the talk of the termination didn't continue after that period of time, correct?
Well, the judge dismissed the case and, let's say it starts with a V, vacated. I don't believe they agreed with terminating my rights because I did make a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of accomplishment in the case plan, but yet not completed due to the CPS inspection. They never came to do the inspection.
And Ting has been in that place helping out Rex ever since that period of time.
Well, I would assume they lived together.
And you met Ting before the case closed, correct?
Briefly.
Right. Did you pose
We
any
didn't say, hi, I'm Kaylee, hi, I'm Ting. It was eye contact only.
And ever since that period of time, who have you been in contact with, Ting or with Rex?
I was in contact with Rex up until February of 2019. Prior to February 2019, we had a visit. I'm not sure if it was in December or January. Rex had made a comment to me calling me fat and ugly in front of Jaden, and it really hurt my feelings. So I decided to correspond with Ting and go through her only because he was hurtful.
So that was in 2019. So your testimony today is that your communication regarding Jaden was always with Rex up until 2019?
Me and Ting would talk sometimes on Rex's phone through text messages. Like I would text Rex and she would say, "Oh, this is Ting, but you can talk to me." So sometimes it was Rex, sometimes it was Ting. When we had visits, sometimes it was Rex, sometimes it was both of them.
And so who did you contact to have the visits with Jaden?
Rex until February of 2019. And there was sometimes, so Rex and Ting. When like it started off with just Rex, and then Ting would answer the phone and say, hey, well, you can talk to me about the visit. He's busy, or he's out of town, or this or that. And you know what I mean? Like, and I have several different numbers from them, so I don't know whose number's what, but I have like 6 numbers.
After the guardianship, or after the case closed, the petition for abuse and neglect closed in 2017, in March of 2017, when was the first time that you had a visit with Jaden?
I don't recall the exact day, month. It was as soon as I could, I would assume.
Okay, so as soon as you could, that was sometime, it was in 2017 or 2018 or 2019?
Well, I got out of jail in October of 2014. So, and I've had visitation periodical throughout this entire time my son's been out of my care. As much as they will let me see him and that it coordinates with my schedule, I'll be there in a heartbeat.
Mr. Hoffland, let
Yes,
me
sir.
just, I think this is probably a good place to stop because we just chronologically started with visitation after after the CPS case closed. It is 10 minutes until your 10 o'clock court appearance. I think this is probably a good spot to stop.
Okay.
Counsel, why don't we plan to join back on this link at 10:30? Mr. Hoffland, I think that gives you sufficient time to handle that hearing and everyone else to take a break. If we join back up, Mr. Hoffland, and you're not yet available, we will, just wait in 15-minute increments after that. Does that make
Thank
sense,
you.
Mr. Hoffland? Is that a good
Yes, thank you
plan?
so much for and everyone else making the accommodation. I appreciate it.
Mr. Toady, Mr. Zernich, is that all right with you?
I have no problem with that, Judge, but if for some reason Mr. Hoffman gets done sooner, if he wants to reach out and we could pick back up, that'd be
Sure.
great.
So, Mr. Hoffland, if you're done before 10:30 and you want to send an email to my law clerk and to counsel, I can jump back on.
Thank you so much, Judge.
But
Thank you,
absent
everyone.
that, I'll see everyone at 10:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.